Hello and welcome, everyone. We are here at the Anti-Gravity Wellness headquarters in my gym, and I have Gabby with me today on our podcast. So we're going to dive into some really great topics around business and being a woman and having a family and going through struggles and how do we navigate all of these things. I met Gabby at a networking event with other women that was just so amazing. And the panel that they put together, and Gabby was on the panel, really impressed me with their depth of knowledge and their experience and how they were able to take their stories and relate it to all of us that were like, I could see myself in that story. And it helps to have somebody that you can go, oh, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Someone else has been through that. So I'm so excited to have her on today. Oh, and by the way, if you are new here, I am Dr. Nicole Smith of Anti-Gravity Wellness. We run a telehealth practice here in Washington and Oregon State for perimenopause and menopausal women. So I'm going to hand it off to Gabby so she can introduce herself and tell us more about her business.
Okay. Yes. Hi, guys. I'm Gabby. So I moved here from Portland, and I met my husband in college. That's how we met. And so I guess my story is, moving here was a big jump for me because I was ready to kind of spread my wings and fly, right? But like I didn't know where God would take me, right? And so coming here was very much a get out of the comfort zone move because my family is back in Portland, right? And so at that time, my husband was running his business already. And of course, me being just the personality that I am, I was like, well, I want to run my own business too, before I like help you with yours until we're married, until we're married. Yes, then we can combine. But until then, I want to run my own, right? So it was more of like, I wanted to prove it to myself. And also I knew one day I'd be working with other women. Right. So I wanted to be able to say like, yeah, this is how I started and this is how I got it going. And yeah, these are the struggles I went through, the rejections, the just development of mental toughness, and I wanted to be able to say like, I feel ya, but keep going. Right. And not a knock against ladies who just, join in on their husband, because that too is a whole different challenge that I didn't have to really experience. Right. And so until, we did combine. But for me, I wanted to be able to say like, yeah, like kind of just normalize the struggle. Right. Like, yeah, I've been there too. So yeah. And so we've been, I guess, in business together since we're married. So coming up 10 years next year. And yeah, and it's been a journey because we started like no kids, right? And then now we have 4 kids. And so just even navigating motherhood and me having to, I guess, face my nonsense, right? And figure out for myself, okay, what are my values? What do I stand for? And let me act on that. That was a journey too, because I realized I had so much, I guess, programming growing up and just the environment that I was around growing up that I didn't know about it until I had children. So I had to really take a look at myself and answer the question for myself, are children a blessing or a burden? Yeah. And then it was like, okay, if I believe they're a blessing, then why am I thinking this way? Why am I acting this way? And now let me take those actions and thoughts captive and submit it to what the truth is, right? Which for me, I'm like, children are a blessing, right? So yeah, so there was that. Okay, sorry, I'm kind of going like everywhere, but so that was kind of the mental journey coming here, right? And then just having to transform my thinking when I came here. And then as far as our business goes, so we do direct sales. So we leverage companies that already have all the platforms in place to start your own business. And one of the questions that Nicole, you sent me, which actually was the hardest question to answer. It's so weird. It was who's your target audience? And I'm like, that's a great question. Yeah. Even our device thinks that's a great question. But I was like, who is my target audience? And I was talking to my husband about it. And I'm like, I think my target audience is just anybody that wants to get the most out of life, but to do it in a holistic way. Right. So like with our products, yes, they accomplish certain things, but it's more, you get more than what you think you're going to get. Right. So like, for example, our vitamins, yes, they're vitamins, but it's also a multi-mineral, multi-phytonutrient. We have things for gut health so that your body can start in general being healthy. And it's not just a yay supplement done, right? And even our skincare and makeup, it's designed so that as you wear it, you're like for the makeup, your skin actually starts to acting healthier. And then the skincare, it's actually vitamins for your skin, not just skincare. So it's like, okay, I'm looking at all of our products like, okay, like how do they function? Why are they the way they are? And then how are my husband and I in business? And our heart really much is in like when we sit down and talk to people and like help them, coach them and stuff, like our heart isn't, okay, let's grow your business. It is very much a, where are you at? How do we grow you as a person? And then you'll build your business, right? So it's a holistic approach to going about business, which I think maybe this is why we click a little bit, because your goal is very much health overall, right? Women's health especially. So for Mac and I, it's like, okay, great, you have a business, but is your life actually healthy? Are you actually living out your values and what you stand for? And sometimes we sit down, like, do coaching sessions, and it's not really business we talk about. It's like marriage, depending on how, how vulnerable a person gets with us, right? Or sometimes it's motherhood, or sometimes it's their health or just their mindset, right? But we're not therapists, like, but we're there to help as much as we can. So, so that's a little bit about what we do. And the MG is mine and my husband's name. Okay, McLaughlin Gabrielle. And then PORTS stands for, the P is for products, O is for opportunity, because we also teach people about what we've done and host seminars here and there. R is for relationship, because sometimes I can't give someone what they're looking for, but hey, maybe I know Nicole, you should meet Nicole, or maybe I know Jennifer, right? That's how we met, right? And so we actually decided to add that aspect just last year, because a lot of our friends were like, hey, like so-and-so, and you got these connections, like, are you guys intentional with that, right? And we're like, oh, I guess we are, but we didn't really know that we were, right? Intentional about building these relationships with friends and other business owners in town. So then we added that. And then T is for trade, because I have a girlfriend that I trade, like she'll do lashes and then I'll give her products, right? And so we do that. Or like, it's like for a while we were talking to one of the restaurants here, right? And so trade is also, that's a part of it. And then S is sovereignty. That's more my husband's niche, I guess, but he has some connections with some people in like trust law and all that. And so of course, if someone's looking for that, we connect, that person with his circle, right? So, but he's like, we got to add this though. This is like good stuff, because not everyone wants to run their own business, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. So that's like, okay, who do we like connect this person with that doesn't want to run a business but still wants a great life, right? Like, okay, consider this, and then here's our mentors in that, right? So, but that's what PORTS stands for, and it's super new, but that's the best we got right now. So, and when it changes, I'll let you know. But that's a little bit of what I do, a little bit about me. Yeah, thanks.
You said something I kind of want to come back to, because I want to know more about what you mean by it. Yeah. You said letting go of your nonsense.
Oh yeah.
What does that mean?
Oh, so I'll just share for me what that was. So nonsense, okay? Things that did not make sense for me and the life I want for myself, or the future that I want for myself. So one of the hardest, not hardest, but just like mirror moments, right? Where you're faced with yourself, like, oh, that's how I think. Is that how I think? Do I believe that? I don't know. Someone else believed that and they spoke it over me, so I accepted it. Right. And so for me, it was actually motherhood. I grew up very much wanting to excel it, like in like a worldly way, right? And have all the material things and the status, right? And all that. And then when I became a mom, it was like, well, I don't have family here as far as like my side. And I had to choose, like, do I continue working, which at that time I was in where was I? I was working in a middle school. Yeah. And teaching kiddos in resource rooms. Special education is part of my background. So I was working with these kiddos, and I actually truly loved what I did. And I love the children that I worked with. Like I truly had a heart for them. But then it was like, okay, now my own baby's coming into town, right? And do I continue working? Or because I had that choice to be with baby full time, do I take that? And yeah. And for me it was, and because it's both, it's good, right? Both options are good. And but then, it was just, and this is me and my belief, right? But I got faith in my life, and so I'm like praying about it. And what I heard was, go where you can't be replaced.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I like that.
So I was like, and as much as it was like hard to leave my job and those children, I kid you not, less than 24 hours, they were asking me to formally submit my resignation so they could hire someone else, right? Because someone wanted to interview, which nothing against them. Like, that's great. They had someone, but it just like made me realize, wow, like had I not taken a step back and been like, okay, what is the direction? What is my next step? And what are my values? Then I don't think I would have ever gotten to that point. And had I not moved to Tri-Cities, I probably would still be back in Portland, and mom's taking care of the kids, right? And I'm working. But then it's like, I'm replaceable though. Yeah. And that's the hard truth though, right? The truth hurts a lot sometimes. And yeah. And just today I was talking to another mom, and she's like, I'm thinking like I want to work a little bit. And I was like, well, is it that you want to work for income, or is it that you just want to be creative and have an impact? Because you can have an impact and not actually have a job. Yeah. Like you can host women's galas, you can have your own podcast, you can start your own business and make an impact that way. I'm like, it doesn't have to look like work where you're told to show up at a certain time and leave a certain time, right? And like if you thrive on that, that's great. Like I did thrive off of that, but then it was like when I was given like a choice to get out of that and to kind of run my own schedule, prioritizing my values, then I was like, well, how could I not take that, right? Because my parents immigrated from the Philippines, and my dad was always telling me, okay, Gabby, like whatever we created, like that's your baseline. And I'm like, okay, that's my baseline. And so he fully expected me to just take on the next level of life for future generations. That was his vision always, was future generations. And so I'm like, okay, like what baseline am I going to create for my kids? So part of that, what I wanted to create was just to let them know, hey, if you want to work, go work. If you want to start a business, start a business. If you want to start a podcast, start one, right? But like, don't ever feel like you're forced to do something. And if you're in a corner and you're stuck, like, okay, count it a season. Count it as a season, and then learn from it, and then grow, right? And then move on. So my nonsense, yes, was actually, what did I truly think of children? Yeah, because the truth is consistent, right? Yes. So in answering that question, I had to answer other questions, and that was kind of hard, right? And so, but that was the biggest one for me, was how do I feel about motherhood? And then I also was looking at, well, how is motherhood portrayed sometimes? Sometimes it's portrayed as like the haggard, tired, like just mom who's doing her best, and it's just, she's not happy, right? But I'm like, I don't receive that for me, And so I met other moms that were just had a healthy mindset around motherhood and spoke life and meaning over me and encouraged me as a mom to get after it in motherhood and whatever else I wanted to do in my life, right? And so, but then it was catching myself too, like, wow, like why did I think motherhood was like almost like a tragedy, right? Where it's like, oh, it's gonna hold me back from my goals, but it's like, oh, but was I really pursuing my goals in the first place? Right? It's like, I think a kid amplifies what's already there, right? So even with my like, emotions and just how lack of self-control I have in certain parts of my life, that was highlighted. But it wasn't because I had that didn't come out because I had children. No, that was already there. But having children turns up the pressure, and now you have to face yourself. And I think what we're given sometimes through social media and just all of that is like, yeah, cave, and children are hard. And like, for example, terrible twos. Well, why do we call it terrible twos?
Mm.
It's actually training twos. When you look at it developmentally in a child's development, that is the prime time to teach your kids things and values. But because someone says, oh, it's terrible twos, it's almost like a crutch to not level up as a mom and to like maybe look at myself and be like, wow, maybe I should control my anger, right? and work with that, right? And that's just my story, right? I was like, wow, I should deal with my anger better. I should learn how to identify my emotions a little bit better as a mom, because if these are teaching twos instead of terrible twos, then I was like, well, I should learn it so I can teach it, right? But I just think that's lost sometimes out there, and so yeah, so that's an example. Those are the examples of the nonsense I had to look at. Like, this doesn't make sense, right? Yeah. So
I love that. That's so poignant too. I'm working with one of my friends who just had a baby, and she is also looking. She's 3 months old.
Oh,
and
yes.
I've been helping her get back into working out and stuff. So I go over there and hold the baby while she works out, and I was like, "Yep, butt, squeeze the butt." Okay,
yeah.
And I'm holding this baby, and I'm like, "I can do this."
That's right. Yes.
Baby time.
Oh,
get
yeah.
my baby fix, and then we, help people to get back into shape. It's great.
That's right. Yes. And you get your baby snuggles,
Yeah.
and you can do your squats while holding baby.
Yeah.
Yes. And I was doing my physical therapy. That's what my girlfriend said. She goes, yeah, just how much does Pierce weigh? Oh, like 20-something pounds. She goes, oh, yeah, just squat with him. Like, okay. And then Pierce loves it.
Oh,
you
loves
know?
it,
So yeah. So that's fun. You get to do that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she's having that kind of existential type of thing too. She's been off work for long enough now that at first it was hard, and she's a flight nurse, so she was like intense. Oh wow. Yes, very intense, very intelligent, very hard driven, and now nothing.
Yeah.
For months, and she's like, this is weird.
Yeah. Yes.
But she's kind of got to that point now where she told me this too. She's like, you need to take a step back and you need to figure things. She's like, that was like one of the biggest gifts. I'm like, you're right, because I'm sitting here feeding this little baby, and I'm like, everything else doesn't matter, just this little thing right here, and it really does kind of give you more perspective on some things. So, and I don't have any kids of my own, but I can definitely appreciate that. And so it was nice sage advice from her. She was like, you need to take a step back, and I love that word. What is my nonsense? And I think a lot of us have our nonsense. Like we have these self-limiting beliefs that you really examine them, and you're like, is that really true? Or did somebody else give that to me? And I think that's true, even though, that was my either a misperception, or I was told to me when I was little. Yeah. I'm a different person now. I'm an adult.
Right. Right.
So
exactly.
Change these things. So I love that.
Yes. And sometimes it's like, maybe no one gave it to you, but like it was programmed into you somehow.
Yes. Yeah.
And like this one movie I was watching, I stopped watching because I was like, I don't like this input, but it was about this girl and, Mila Kunis, right? So I'm like, okay, maybe this is a good movie. But then like at the beginning, like the first 15 minutes, she goes like, it's kind of going through like, this is my life, this is what I'm doing, da da da. And then in the phrase there was a phrase, and she's like, hate babies, love work. I'm like, oh. But like that little thing can get into like a young person's head. Yes. And then now they operate from it subconsciously and they don't know. Right. So I was just like, whoa. So I was like, I don't want to watch this. But it was just little things like that.
Yeah. Little subliminal almost kind of, things that we're trained for.
Yes.
So
it's wild.
Let's talk about balancing, because you're an entrepreneur, balancing that and the grind hustle culture, and you have to be on all the time. And then, but you have a family, or you have your own health that you're trying to coordinate. So how do you balance that?
I think for me, and I'm stealing this from one of my mentors. I didn't say this. So she always says, it's not a balance, it's a prioritization, and being okay with that prioritization. So, I know. Yeah. Yes. And I very much can lean towards the people pleaser side. So to tell someone no, but thank you for thinking of me is very hard. And also I want to help people and be there and add value any way I can. Right. And so have you heard of the Big Rock story and the professor with his students? Yes. Yes. Okay. Yes. So it was a lot of sitting with myself first and being like, what are my big rocks?
So for the people who don't know.
Oh, right. Yes. Hello. So the Big Rock story is Okay, so the students are in college, right? They're taking their final, and the professor stops them in the middle of the final. And then he goes, okay, everyone, can I get your attention? And the students are kind of irked because they're like, okay, professor, what are you doing? This is a time test. This is 90% of my grade. For this college course, like, they're not interested, but they look up. Some look up. And the professor takes out a glass vase, right, like this big. And then he puts, big rocks in it and everything. And then he asks the students, okay, is it full? And the students are like, okay, why is he doing this? But yeah, sure, it's full. Yes, it's full. And then he goes, okay. Then he takes out a bag of pebbles, sets it on the desk. And now the students are like, what's he doing? And then he pours it into the vase, which, makes noises. So now there's more attention, right? They're like, what is he doing? And he fills it all the way up. And now there's a little bit of intrigue because they're like, okay, we just said it was full, but now he's filling it how it's kind of fun, And then he goes, okay, is it full now? Right? And the students say, yeah, it's full. He goes, okay. Takes out a bag of sand, pours it in. The sand fills in the cracks of the pebbles and the big rocks. And now you have more students who are a little more intrigued. They're like, whoa, okay, interesting. And he goes, is the jar full? And they say, you kind of think about it. Well, it wasn't full the last 2 times. But they're like, well, what else can go in there, right? And so they say, yes, professor, it's full. He goes, are you sure? And they're like, yes, we're sure. It's full. You can't fit anything else in there because it's the sand, right? Then he takes out water. Pours in the water. It gets soaked up by the sand. Fills it all the way to the top. And then he goes, okay, now is it full? And at that time, the students are like, yes, no, it's not full. No, it's not. He goes, well, actually, it is full. It is full. And they're like, okay, so what? So then he takes out the same size vase and he pours in the water first. And he says, is this vase full? And they're like, yes. Yes, it's full. He goes, okay, let me try to put the sand in. So he puts the sand in, he puts pebbles in, the big rocks, and he just makes a mess, right? And he goes, why is it that this vase could hold everything nicely and not spill over, but this vase, it spilled over? The students are like, well, easy, you put it in the water first. He's like, exactly. This final is just a grain of sand. So don't be so stressed about it because it's just a grain of sand. And so my mentor uses that to teach. And she goes, okay, what are the things in your life right now? Like if you're feeling chaotic, it's probably because you're putting the sand in first, the pebbles in first, and the water in first, and maybe your big rocks are lacking. So she's always like, okay, what are your big rocks? Right? And so when I fill my calendar is my glass vase. So my big rocks are, I got my faith, right? And I tithe my time. And so I volunteer. And then I do weekly date nights with my husband. We take each kid out for an individual date, just one-on-one time. And then I plan out when we're going to visit with, my mom, because she's in Portland, and spend time with his parents, right? Because we want to have that relationship. And then after that, it's like, okay. Oh, sorry. Before, okay, this is going to sound kind of harsh. Before I plan out when I'm going to see my family in Portland, that's when I put in business stuff. That's okay. Which is really hard for some people. Yeah. But it's like, because I had prioritized that first, when it was time for my dad to go, I had the free time to be in Portland whenever I needed to be, to help with hospital visits, translating with the doctors. And we're not rolling around in money, but because we had the mentorship and coaching in our business, we were able to put away money so that when the time came, times of tragedy, we could have something to give for my mom. And so she actually was able to take a whole month of work off, and we just cover that for her. But see, people see that like, wow, that's so nice of you. You're so lucky you could do that. But it's like, no, like I had to make those hard decisions, like I remember missing my dad's birthday so I could go to a seminar and learn. And that's actually where I learned like the budgeting and all of that. And then years later, it's like, okay, like that skill would actually help me provide for my mom later when he passed. But it's like, they got to make that hard decision sometimes. And it wasn't like, sorry, Dad, I'm not going to celebrate your birthday. It was like, Dad, I can't make it this, for your birthday this year, but hey, can I celebrate you before or after? Or we could do like, a weekend somewhere, right? So it's not like I'm not celebrating you in general. It's let's plan ahead and know where my big rocks are so I can prioritize those and then do other things after that. Right. So even with my schedule right now, because Monday through Thursday, I also homeschool. And so it's like,
girl.
wow, I know. And I've been praying 2 years about it. And finally I was like, I accept the mission. Okay, I will homeschool. And but like Monday through Thursdays, that's my time with my kids and they're learning for a few hours. And so I schedule client time or intense business time Fridays and Saturdays. Right. But I look at that and it's like, sometimes people are like, well, what about time with your kiddos? I was like, well, they have me the rest of the week, but Fridays and Saturdays is my hustle time. Yeah. Right. And that can look really different, right? It can look like a few hours or it can look like a 12-hour day, but that's okay because they have me the rest of the other days. Yes. Right. And another thing is we let our kids know too what our priorities are, that we're doing this so that mommy can continue to be with you all day. I was like, or I can send you to school and you're not with mommy all these weeks, or all these hours in a day. Yeah. And you only have mommy for like, the nighttime. And they're like, okay, so they're starting to get it. Right. And Leona will cry, she'll cry and it pulls on your heartstrings, but it's like, no, we're going to go help our friends so they can do the same. Right. So it's like, which actually is very healthy for kids to see their parents go off on a mission, right? Outside of them. Because I was reading a book called Strong Mothers, Strong Sons. And it was talking about how because a lot of moms, including myself, can be over praising with our sons, but too much of that can lead to toxic masculinity down the road. So then she's like, okay, how do we prevent that? And they found that if you tell your child the strength to pair it with how they can use that strength to help others, that actually, it gets them out of their own head. Because as a toddler, they're in their own world in general. It's all about them, right? So to be able to say, wow, you're so strong and mighty, you're going to help so many people one day. Then they start going like, oh, like I should help people, So then I just took that and kind of just applied it to like everything else we're doing. Like we're doing this so that we can help other people. So then our kids can see like, oh, it's not just about our family and about us. Right. And so, yeah, but I guess I don't balance. We just really make sure our vase is filled with the big rocks first, then the pebbles, then the sand, then the water, because we still like to have fun and hang out with friends. Right. But that's a little lower on the priority list. Right. Yeah. And my friends get it. We all have lives anyways. Yeah. So they're like, oh, you can't like get together for coffee until like next month. Cool. I'll live my life until then, and like I have really low maintenance friends, right? Which is kind of nice, but they all run their own businesses too. So they get it. Oh, yeah. Yes. And even if they don't, they just look at my life like, how are you doing all this? I'm like, big rocks, I'm telling you, Yeah. So to answer that, that's what we do. And Mac and I, every year we sit down and be like, okay, our big rocks, how's it going? And every week, how's it going? Are we making progress in these things? Or like, are we distracting ourselves? Right. Which I'm guilty. Online shopping, guilty. I'm definitely on the phone. I'm going to be productive. Listen to messages. Oh, look, also while I'm listening to messages, I will go shopping. It's like, no, I'm not getting anything then, Yeah. So like, and so we have weekly date nights, but also weekly, we call it executive meetings. Some people call it CEO meetings, right? Where, because you run a household. Yeah. Right. You run a household, you run a family. So I'm like, well, if big corporate America people do it to run a business that doesn't love them back, I'm going to do that and have a weekly meeting with my husband for my family. Right. And so we do so those meetings are like, okay, how's budget looking? Who needs to buy diapers? Are we traveling this week? Okay, babysitter logistics. Did we fill in, the times we need for sitters? And, so that's separate from date night because we used to have it at the same day. And my mind can't do that. I was always in grind mode. He goes, can you relax? I'm like, I can't. And so my mentor's like, you need to separate that. I'm like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, but we hire sitters for it, you know?
Yeah.
So
Nice.
it's, but again, we see it like, okay, this is an investment in our family for our kids because since we take time to do all this planning, that's how we're able to prioritize those dates with our kids, date with each other, our volunteering, you know, at extracurriculars, right? Or collabing with other business owners like this, right? And so, yeah. So to answer your question, less balancing, more prioritizing. Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds like you and your husband live very intentionally. There's an intentionality about what you do and your routine. Do you see that as restrictive or do you see that as freedom?
My husband always says discipline equals freedom. Yeah.
What's out there for sure.
Yes. I think it's a Jocko Willink.
Oh,
Have
yeah,
you read his book? Yes,
yeah.
yes. Discipline equals freedom. I think that's him. But I see it as so for a while I was battling that. I was like,
yeah.
Because my flesh does not like it, you know?
Yeah.
But then I thought, okay, if I'm operating in a state of, oh, go with the flow, whatever happens, then I'm a slave to my emotions or a slave to what I'm feeling in the moment. I'm a slave to the moment, not the future, right? And I don't have a command of my future because I'm a slave to the moment, right? Whereas the opposite of that, if I create structure, because the time's going to go by anyways, right? So if in my mind, I'm like, well, if I can create this structure and stick to it, I mean, we're not perfect. Like we have those grace days. Like the other day I had a migraine, wiped out the whole day and I had to like lay there and like do this, you know, but it was like, okay, that's fine. Like I just learn to accommodate what you need to accommodate. And especially with kids, you accommodate what you need to accommodate. But I find even with children, they also need those boundaries and those structures, right? So I'm like, well, as an adult, I probably still need it too, right? Yeah. So I've actually found it's created freedom for me, which also ties back to motherhood. Because at first I thought, well, being a mom, I'm restricted and this and that, lack of freedom. But I kid you not, because being a mom forced me to face myself. Like I've never experienced so much emotional, mental, spiritual freedom because it was then now you're in a position of I can choose what to think. I can choose what to act. Oh, I was holding victim mindset around this topic. I don't want to do that anymore. And you literally start breaking these chains off of your life. Right. And so for me, when I schedule my day, it's like I'm no longer a slave to Netflix. Now I watch Netflix when I want to watch Netflix. And I'm not there like just watching it all the time. Yes. Or TikTok. I downloaded that once. I could support my cousin because she did a video. I was like, yeah, I'll like it. Right. And then I caught myself like 45 minutes just getting input from who knows who. I don't know what their life is like, you know, and anyone can make anything sound awesome, you know, on a video. Right. And so I'm like, what am I doing? I should just read a book, you know? But I do still enjoy, you know, my Netflix and my online shopping, but that is after all the priorities have happened. Right. But yeah, it's just to answer your question. I don't think it's at first it feels like, yes. And I'm like, I don't like this. Yeah. It's like, well, good. That means I'm growing and I'm accommodating. I'm learning this new thing. Right. And so it's like, okay, but I know at the end of this, if I can stay disciplined and prioritizing what needs to get prioritized, at the end of the day, I can fully rest in my recharge or in my relaxation or my rest. Right. And so I don't know. I think the human spirit desires to earn things. I don't know, but come at it from a place of like, I'm worthy, I'm loved. Right. But there is, I don't know, there's like a part of you that, at least for me, like celebrates when you're like, I'm gonna watch my Christmas movie on Netflix because I did X, Y, and Z and I earned it. Yeah. You know, versus, oh, I need to do X, Y, and Z, but let me watch this movie first. Right. Because it's what I feel like doing in the moment. Yes. And so I think it creates freedom ultimately in the grand scheme of things, you know? Yeah.
So using that as more of like a reward and recovery as opposed to avoiding.
Yes. And I've had to learn, and I don't know other ladies on here, but I've had to learn what actually recharges me. Yeah. Like a true recharge versus something that I'm just distracting. myself with.
Yes. Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
because I found like, so one of the things I thought, okay, this is recharging for me is maybe going to get my nails done. And it's nice. It's a nice thing to do, but it doesn't actually recharge me.
Mhm.
You know, it's just another thing I do and I enjoy, but it doesn't recharge me. Whereas actually doing this and having a coffee date with a girlfriend,
Mhm.
that I find is actually recharging, because then after it happens, I feel like I could go on and do 10 more tasks.
Oh yeah.
Versus, you know, versus after like doing my nails, I'm like, I'm ready to sleep.
Yeah.
Right. So just whatever you need in the moment, right? Or whatever you need for yourself to keep going. Because sometimes you do need that rest, but sometimes you need that recharge,
Mhm.
right? Or that exhale, right? Some people call it like the exhale, the inhale,
Mm.
right? And so I'm like, but for me, I had to learn too, okay, what actually recharges me. And a good gauge if you're a mom is if you do something and you come home and you're like in a chipper mood, like that recharged you, you know? Or if you come home and you're like, I just want to lay down. Okay, that was more of a rest, you know, and like Zen zone, ready to like go into your full rest, right? And so, but learning that was an activity for me, because a lot of times it was like, well, this is what I hear that I should do, like light a candle and like journal. I'm like, that's great, but to me, that's work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you know, so that's draining for me actually.
Yeah.
But you know, you try it and you figure out what works for you. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think making sure that you don't let other people's opinions of
Yeah.
how you should be doing this or that, but
Mhm.
asking yourself, like, how do I react
Yeah.
after certain activities? How do I
Mhm.
feel? Does
Mhm.
that fill me up or does it deplete me?
Yeah.
You know?
Yes, that's the word.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, sometimes going out into big crowds, some people, we don't do so well with that.
Right. Right.
Other people, I've got a girlfriend, like, if she is not talking to 50 people in one day, it's a bad day for her. Like, she needs it. Like, it fills her cup. And I'm like, that is exhausting.
Yeah, yes. And you're like, I just want to like be at home. Yeah, yes.
It's like we just talk, girl. No, I'll talk to you in like 3 days.
Mhm, mhm. That's right. Yes.
Like, I really have no new content.
Yeah, yeah. I'll give you an update. Give me a month.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Things happen.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
that's good. You know yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that
Mhm.
that helps. Like getting
Mhm.
older, having a family, having a
Mhm.
business. We didn't know these things when we were younger. We thought we had it all figured out.
Right. Of course.
But yeah.
20s, I got this.
But just the wisdom that comes with time and
Mhm.
with trials and tribulations.
Yeah.
So that kind of works into a nice little segue.
Yeah.
I know we were talking about you put a lot of
Mhm.
thought into this.
Yeah.
What one of the hardest things that you've been through
Mhm.
that you're on the other side now, or even if you are
Mhm.
still going through some things, because I don't know that we've ever really recovered.
Mhm. Right.
But
Yeah.
what is your story about that? And
Mhm.
then how did you move through that? And what wisdom would you impart to anyone else who
Yeah.
might be struggling with something similar?
Yeah. No, I feel ya. Yes, I think I'll just extend what I talked about during the panel. So the piece of advice I would give somebody, no matter what you're going through, just operate from a point of victory.
What does that mean?
Yeah. So it's already won. The battle's already won. You've already overcome,
Okay.
but your actions just need to catch up to that overcoming. Right. So my example of that, oh man, and you wouldn't think, oh, this ain't hard. You just gotta, do your PT stuff. But we were in a really bad car accident. And like the car was totaled, the car came into our car. And I still think we were protected, because if it was a few more feet, I'd be gone, or my 4-month-old would have been gone. And so the fact that I'm here and I have my eye, I have my arm, I have my right side of my body, I can talk, right? I can walk. I still got my leg, right? My ribs. So the fact that, okay, one, I'm still here. I'm grateful, right? But the journey was, oh my gosh, this girl can't walk no more, like correctly, And it was like, I'd look in the mirror, I couldn't recognize myself, because this side of my face was so just like, scratched and wounded. And I was like picking glass off of my face. I remember calling my mentor. I'm like, Debbie, I'm picking glass off of my face. Like, this is ridiculous. I do not recognize me, And I remember her telling me, she goes, you're victorious. You're victorious. And she's like, act like it. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're right. And so it's like, okay, I must act like it. And I really had to learn to take command of my thought life, because it's so in the journey of, this journey was, okay, I could only wear flats. And when I would walk, I would do this, like I looked physically like I was needing help. And before all the accident, right, I was like, I did hip hop dancing, I do salsa dancing, I like was a Zumba instructor at one point. So I was like, so to all of a sudden be like, I can't walk correctly, was like, well, okay, but I will one day, and I will dance again. And this is only a season. It has to be only a season. And so when those negative thoughts would come in of like, well, you really, I mean, look at you. Like I couldn't recognize myself, right? Like, look at you. And it's like, yeah, look at me in here, So like I couldn't look at my physical and be like, this is what it is, and be victim to the current. And that was another thing I had to face. I'm like, okay, am I victorious or victim to the current, right? And I was like, well, I don't want to be victim to the current, because then that stays forever. And the time's going to pass anyway. And I know it's harder than how I'm making it sound, but it's like, I had to choose the action that would support me in the future. Like I had to, right? Even when I was doing these PT exercises and I couldn't even do like a leg raise, like doing the putting your knee up. Yeah. And it was like, it's okay. It's a season. I have the staff to help me. I have the connections to help me with this. I have help. I'm not alone. That's another thing. You're not alone. Someone's always going through what you're going through. You have friends that will encourage you. There's always support. For me, it was my faith. Like that's where that comes from, is that's in scripture. Like, you are victorious, right? So I leaned on that. I was like, I'm victorious. I'm a masterpiece, and a masterpiece is beautiful. Because I also had to deal with my vanity, right? Because I was like, I look a little weird. Will my skin heal? Right? Like, because it was right here. But then it was like, nope, who cares about that? I'm grateful. I have my eye. Yeah. So I had to count my blessings. I had to count the good things. Like, okay, it's hard to pick up the kids right now. Like, I couldn't pick up my children, right? I couldn't breastfeed because it hurt really, really bad. And my supply actually went down. But I was like, I'm grateful that I'm even here to have this struggle. I'm grateful that my kid is even here, And it was just like, I literally had to be like, no, there are still wins in this moment. And I'm not going to let the negative or the enemy just rob me of my future. Like, no way, no way. And I remember my aunt actually called me. She's like, hey, Gabby, like, how'd you deal with the depression? I was like, I don't have the luxury to be depressed. Like, yes, was I sad? Yeah. Was I angry? Yeah. And I cried it out and I got mad, right? But I was never mad at God. I was always grateful that I was even still here. And then in those moments, like, I wouldn't say I was depressed. I was like, just learning to get tougher mentally, spiritually, emotionally, right? And were there hard days? Yes. Like, I would call my mentor and like cry it out. And my rule for myself, I actually heard this on a John Maxwell. We went to a conference and we heard him speak. And he would always say, he goes, I give myself 24 hours to celebrate or to be sad or upset. 24 hours. After that, I'm going to do what it takes to move forward. Right. So I'm like, okay, I'm giving myself 24 hours. And I let myself feel it, and and there are moments where I had to cry it out. That's okay. I still showed up to my physical therapy appointment, did what I needed to do, and just was grateful for all the help that was there for me. Right. And again, if you feel like you're alone, you're not. That's a lie. Don't fall for that lie.
That's nonsense.
Yeah, that's nonsense. That's nonsense. Yes. Yeah. So that was I think that was one of the most hardest things, because, I've lost loved ones, but that's a part of life, right? That's a part of life. So it's like, yes, I'm going to go through that. It's a part of life. But to all of a sudden be met with anything I could put my identity in was challenged. Yeah. Everything, even my brain. Because growing up, I was the academic one. And then to experience just random dizziness, so much so that it would feel like I fell over and that the room flipped. And I just had to lay there. And even overthinking would like hurt my brain. I'm like, I can't even trust my brain. So to not even be able to trust my intellect was like, oh my gosh. But then for me, in my faith, it was like, oh, I'm putting my identity in the wrong things. I'm putting my identity in things that can get taken away from me at any moment. Even motherhood, that was hard because when I couldn't tend to the kids and be the kind of mom I imagined myself to be, oh, that tore me up. But even then, the words I heard were that's you're yes, you are a mom and you're more, right? And like your identity is in me, right? Which for me is my faith. And so I was like, for reals, even my motherhood, you're going to challenge. And I was like, all right, bring it on. Okay. And that actually is freeing because then now I'm looking at my children, not like you're mine, but it's like, I've been trusted with you. So let me do right by you. Right. And so in moments where I'm like, you kind of want to get mad. It's like, okay, how would a teacher respond to this? Right. How would, but ultimately motherhood, you're teaching them ironically to not need you anymore one day, which is like so heartbreaking to hear, but like I'm teaching them to be independent one day, right? And to not need me ultimately. So yeah, so that was the challenge. And then that's just, my journey through that challenge. And now I can wear the shoes I want to wear now, which is great, which I know it sounds like a little thing, but I remember getting rid of my heels and like crying. And my husband's like, it's not the heels, is it? I'm like, it's not the heels, because the heels represented my capability, my ability to dance and to enjoy, life and have fun. Like to me, I felt like I can't even have fun. And fun is like a drop of water in the vase, I'm like, I can't even have fun. Right. But it was like, no. Rein that thought in. You are working hard so you can get back to even better than where you were. Right. Which, before the accident, I had like hip dysplasia and all that stuff going on too. Right. So it was like hard to do certain things already. And I was on that healing journey, and then like the car accident, it was like literally step 0. I'm working on step 0. Right. But then now I remember when someone spoke over me, oh, you're never going to be the same after this, with like a negative connotation. I took that as like, you're right. I'm going to be even better, And that's another thing. If you're struggling with people talking over you, you don't have to receive it. You can just be like, thanks, no thanks. I don't receive that. And sometimes I'll say under my breath, like, I don't receive that. Nope, don't receive. Yes. And when someone says something good about you, you're like, I receive. I got that from a girlfriend. I'm like that. That's nice.
Yes. And that's brilliant because we have more control than we think as far as like Stephen Covey says it, between a stimulus and your response, there's a space.
Yes.
And we get to choose, but we have to be aware and practice and create that space for ourselves so that we have the opportunity to choose our response because shit's gonna happen.
Yes.
Like, life happens.
Yes. That is life.
And it's not fair, it's not equal, it sometimes makes no sense. And you can question God, you can question the universe and why, and does that serve you though?
Right.
Like you have to make that decision. So the fact that you made that decision of, does this serve me? No, it doesn't. I'm going to choose this instead.
Yeah.
And it's not easy.
No, because I feel like it's like that crazy ex that tries to come back, but you're already married. You're like, leave me alone. Those are the negative thoughts that are trying to get you. And you're like, I got a future already. Like, we're done here,
Yes.
but it tries to come back sevenfold, right? Oh, yeah. But you're just going to be like, nope, we are done, right? Yes. That's what I tell, So I tell my cousins, I'm like, don't let that negative thought, that ex come back. No, like, reason why they're called an ex. Like, yeah. But you're right though. It's harder than how we're talking about it, right? Easier said than done, right? But it must be done because at the end of the day, you're the only person that can take command of that. And the lie is that you cannot do anything about it. Like, that's such a lie. Such a lie. And I had doctors too that were like, how are you still here? And I was like, I want to be here. Like, I want to keep going. Let's do this. I got children I got to run with and play soccer with, but I couldn't even pick up Pierce. That was heartbreaking. It was only 4 months. But then I was like, nope, It's part of the journey. It's okay. And now when I hold them, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful.
Right.
And I can, my goal was to be able to squat down. Well, one, to do a squat, right? But be able to squat down and hold all 3 kids and get back up and walk straight instead of like this, doing this and it hurts, right? But it's like, now I can do that. I can do it in heels, or like, chunky heels.
Yeah.
But it's like, but oh my gosh, if you would have told me that though, right after the accident, I would have been like, I don't know if I believe you right now, but I trust that future for me. So let's go. Right. But yeah, you got to trust your future sometimes, like the good parts of your future. Yeah.
That can be hard when you're in a bad place.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, you don't see the light around you at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I do like though that you said, giving yourself 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working hospital bedside, working with people. Like I see them on their worst days, that was you on your worst day when you went to the hospital that day, and the nurses who had to take care of you and the doctors. And I spent my career doing that. And I would go into a room and they're just falling apart. I'm like, you get to do this. You do, but you don't get to stay here. You're not setting up camp.
Right. Right.
In depression land. Okay?
Yes.
We're not staying here. Let it out. Because that'll just fester. But we can't live there.
Yeah.
We can't live there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I like that. Don't pitch a tent here. Don't create a mailbox here. No. You don't live here.
No.
Yeah.
You don't live here.
Right. That's so good. I like that. Yes. That's awesome.
So, okay. This is a good one. What does connecting and serving the community mean to you?
Oh yeah, I read that question. I was like, good one. Can I review my notes?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Let's see. Sorry guys, give me a second here. Okay, because it was, what does it mean to me, right? Serving,
connecting and serving the community.
I think the first part, connecting, is just being present. And I guess step 0 to that is be available, right? For God or the universe to work in your life to bring people to you. And that when you're there, you recognize an opportunity, right? But to do that, you have to be present, right? It's like, and also the nice thing is sometimes you don't have to feel like it. Feel like connecting with somebody to connect. So just these past 2 days, actually, because of my migraine and everything, I'm like, I don't want to go out there. But part of what I do in my habits is I go out and intentionally try to connect with people, or at least make myself available to keep my people skills sharp, right? And so, and the best time to do that, to really develop your people skills and, self-command, is when you really don't feel like going out, right? But then you do it anyways, right?
Yeah.
And I kid you not, I was at Share Tea. That's one of my favorite bubble tea places here in town. As I was there, just doing what I need to do. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to meet someone today or, be a light in someone's life today, but, hey, I'm here. Probably wasn't the best attitude, but I was like, I'm here. And then I always lean back on, I'm grateful I'm here, because I could have been taken away like that. So I'm like, okay, so attitude adjustment, go, right? Like, okay, like I'm not the most chipper person today, but I will be available for anyone that wants to talk. And I kid you not, like 2 people just come up and go, what are you doing? And then the owner of Share Tea sat down and was like, hey, can I chat with you for a little bit? Because we have that like friendship, right? I'm like, yeah, sure, But like to be like, oh, no. Or be like, yeah, I'm doing some work, but I made sure like I was there, I was present. And as he was talking, I like put my paper away, put my phone away, moved everything this way. Like, okay, what's up? How's your new year going? And was I like the most happy person that day? No. But I also have learned to ask encouraging questions, or questions that inspire unity, or questions that inspire creativity. So then it's a positive like engagement, I guess, right? And not like a draining one, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And so I'm just asking him, like, and like the migraine's like trying to hit me. I'm like, no migraine, no, right? But in the moment, I'm like, okay, I'm here for D. He's wanting to talk. He's tired. They're trying to have a kid, and that's exciting. Zyra's cool, we get coffee here and there, or we get together here and there at their shop. But I'm like, okay, how can I be here for my friend? I didn't even look at him as a business owner. It was like, how can I be here for a friend right now who's super tired, but also is taking the time to sit down and chat with me? Like, no, They don't have to do that. They don't have to talk to me. You didn't have to come say hi. You didn't have to invite me here. So to have that heart too, I think part of the connecting, with people in the community is having that heart of gratitude too, of like, wow, time is so precious and they're choosing to spend time with me, to chat with me right now.
Yeah.
Like, thank you.
Yeah.
So having that heart. And then also, because it was connecting and serving the community, right? I think the serving part, just for Mac and I, what it's looked like lately is, okay, what's our strength zone? Because for the longest time I was working on my weaknesses, and then John Max was like, what are you doing? Operate from your strengths first, and then work on your weakness if it's hindering you from your future. But if it's not, then keep going until you got to address it, right? So I'm like, okay, what are my strengths? And so I think part of serving the community too is making sure you're in your strength zone and focusing on higher moral values, I find helps, because if it's just, because for us, we have products, right? Particularly a kids vitamin line, right? So that was the focus I wanted to take this year. But instead of just like an event where we're talking about vitamins for the kids, like we hosted a parenting seminar where we had a few of our friends who either run businesses or they have like nonprofits or they're like pastors, right? But we pretty much opened it up. We're like, okay, these are, Mac developed it, right? It was this really cool idea. It was like the high five method, and each finger represented, I guess, a part of parenting and development of a child. So like the thumb was the physical, and then the pointer was the intellectual, and then the middle finger was the emotional part. Ring finger was spiritual. Did I say spiritual already?
Mm-mm.
No, yeah, spiritual. And then pinky is social, because you make a pinky promise, right, with your friends. But he had a reason for every single one. It was really good. Good job, love. Look at you. But like in that though, it wasn't just like, let's talk about our 5 kid products. It was like, no, let's talk about the five categories of what can impact our parenting and what is needed for our children. That support, right? Mm-hmm. So then in each category, we had, a friend speak on each one. So that's another thing, collaboration. Mm-hmm. I think this whole idea, like self-made, whatever, no one's ever self-made. Like you got friends that help you. Yes, it's another lie.
Oh my gosh.
It's another lie, Yes. So it's like no collaboration. And how do you do that? How do you collab with someone? Well, first you need to have that relationship and rapport with them, which starts with connecting, right? Mm-hmm. And so so what does it look like to connect and serve the community? I think it's operating from your strength zone and just being available and being a light when you can, no matter how small. And then who knows where those conversations take you, right? Because sometimes you're chatting with somebody, but then they're like, well, you should meet this friend. Mm-hmm. Like, okay. And that's how I met Jennifer. Mm-hmm. Was through a mutual friend that we've known for years, since before we were, like, Mac and I were married. Mm-hmm. But because we kept that relationship, he was like, you need to meet Jennifer. I'm like, okay. And then, and then she introduced me to an amazing group of ladies, so, but it's like, had I not had that moment of like, yeah, I'll talk to Edward. So that time Edward hadn't created anything yet. Mm-hmm. I could have easily been like hoity-toity, well, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm like, no, this guy's trying to get after it. Good for him. Mm-hmm. Like, let's encourage him, right? And now since then he started multiple businesses, right? But it's like, just, I guess, operating from victory, from light, be a light, connect with people. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does.
But
it really does. Yeah. Okay. I love that. Well, and it's coming at it from like the smallest thing to the biggest thing, like, the biggest impact, but mm-hmm. starting with the smallest little thing that we can do. Yeah. And I like how you were talking about, even from a place of, I may not feel my best, but stepping outside of yourself to help somebody else, it actually helps you to, like, wallow.
Yes.
Right. And it can help you to get over these things a lot faster when you mm-hmm. focus on the outside and focus on somebody else. And I felt that too. Like when I'm really feeling down, mm-hmm. If I go help somebody else, I mm-hmm. automatically feel better. Mm-hmm. Is it selfish then? I don't know.
No, it's an upward spiral. It's a win-win. Yes. That's right. There you go.
I love that. Mm-hmm. Well, we've been going for a while. So is there, we're almost at the hour mark. Oh, and we got 2 hearts.
Wow, I talk a lot. Thanks for listening,
Which
guys.
is
I'm so
awesome.
grateful.
So tell us, do you have anything coming up that you want to talk about? Do you have any freebies you want to share, or where people can find you?
Where people can find me.
Mhm.
I'm kind of old school, but I do have a Facebook. It's not, I don't have like a business Facebook. I'm working on it, guys. I have my friend that's like, you need your socials. I'm like, I know. Honestly, my cell phone, the best way to get a hold of me. I don't know if you'll be posting that on there, but that's a great way to get a hold of me. Email is good too. We do have a retail website that I can send you guys to as well. And let's see what else. Yeah, I'm kind of old school. I don't know, but I'm working on my socials. Yeah, and any events coming up, we are going to be a vendor. We're going to be marketing our kids' vitamin line at the Teach the Children Homeschool Expo at the end of February. So it's a 2-day event, and they're going to have, it's really good. Like if you're considering homeschooling, like it's not like, because, you know, coming from Portland, I was like, I don't want to have weird kids if I'm gonna homeschool, to be honest, right? That's where I was. But it's like here, Tri-Cities has a great homeschool community where they can still have a classroom experience, but they don't have to be in school every single day for 8 hours, you know, and actually they can thrive, but also still having a classroom environment, right? So that homeschool convention, I know Laura was planning to have speakers there. So she's going to have speakers, going to have different vendors, whether they're showcasing their actual curricula that they rep, or it's moms in the community that have homeschooled for X amount of years and have, you know, kids in college already. And they've homeschooled, you know, all throughout until, you know, they went to college. And so they will be there just sharing their knowledge. And it's one big homeschool resource event. Yeah, but we will be there with our Vitamin Kid booth. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And then I know that my husband wants to have like a father power event. Yes. That's needed. Yes. So we have the sports nutrition line that we have. But again, we're like, well, yeah, we can talk about that. But like, what's the heart issue here? Like, what is something that our community actually needs and would thrive from, regardless of whether or not they purchase a product, right? So he wants to do a father power event in June. It won't be on Father's Day though. You know, we want to respect that. But he is planning one. I don't know. And him with a few other business owners, they're planning to do one and collab. And so I don't know the date yet though, but it will be in June. Okay. Yeah, he's planning like, oh, let's do rucking. Do you know rucking? Like that. Yes.
Like a bag on their back and then like run around.
Yes. Yes. Like military, like, you know, exercises, you know, they try to mirror that. Yeah. So he's thinking that. I'm like, Love, are you sure? Because like, what if a guy wants to come, but he can't do that stuff? He goes, that's exactly why they need to be here. You know, he goes, should be able to pick up your children and have to run if you need to, you know? I'm like, yes, love. Yes, that's true. And so, but there is going to be a physical aspect to it. I'll just give you guys a heads up on that. But last year he had a speaker speak. He had the guys, they came up, said he also did the collab last year. And so it was 3 speakers and they spoke on like guy stuff. Like, you know, I was like, hey, look, come on, tell me what you guys talk about. He goes, you don't want to know. I'm like, no, I want to know. Like, just give me like the topic because I know they're talking about overcoming that. One guy spoke on overcoming pornography. The other one spoke about overcoming, and he became a business owner, but he was homeless with 2 girls and a wife. Wow. So he was homeless at one point. And then the other gentleman talked about rejection of his father. So they talk about deep stuff. Yeah. You know, really good guys stuff.
Don't talk about.
I know. But what we're finding is, and this is, you know, through just running a business, right? It's like, okay, let's talk and let's chat business. But then what happens is sometimes the conversation goes deeper and it's like, yeah, brother, like I actually have a problem with pornography. And he goes, okay, I used to too. And we overcame that. Like, how can we help? Right. And so we're finding that a lot of people want to talk about it, but there's not a space to really come together and talk about it, especially for guys.
Well, it's not safe.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so so they did that last year and they had such a good turn. I think 50 plus guys came and all of them were like, when's the next one for next year? We're like, oh, wow. Okay. So the community is hungry for it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I guess that ties into serving your community is just, okay, what is a need that you think is there,
Yeah.
and then try to fill it and then see how that goes. And is it something that matters to you too? Is it a cause that's on your heart too?
Yeah.
Right. And so, but yeah, so there's that men's event. I think they called it last year, it was called Mentality. Or, yeah, it was Mentality with a capital MEN. And I was like, nice. Yes. And I'm like, what are you guys gonna call it this year? He goes, I don't know. And I'm like, okay. He's very much like things come together at the end. Whereas I like to plan. So yeah.
Why do we marry our opposites?
I know. Complementary. Yes. They complement us. That's what they say.
Bring up that side, and sometimes there's a little bit of headbutting, but it's good.
Yes, it's good. It's towards progress. Yes. That's funny. Yeah. Thanks, Nicole.
Gabby, thank you so much for coming on. This is amazing. We're gonna have to do it again.
I would be humbled. I would love to.
We didn't even get through like any of these. So
I know. Yes. I was like, okay, I'm prepared. You know,
your homework and everything. But that's what I say. Like,
Thanks.
this is guide, and then we just talk.
Yeah.
And you said some amazing things. I just had to dive in. So
thanks, Nicole.
Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, and thank you guys for listening. You didn't have to, but thank you. Yes.
All right. So we will be editing this up, and we'll be putting it on Spotify. So watch out for that, and keep an eye on this girl and her business and her husband. They're amazing. And thank you for being here. So
thank you. Thanks, guys.
Have a great rest of your it's Friday.
Friday, yes.